Okay, we should be live. So Deepti, welcome. Thank you for talking to us about Agile contracts, our second instantiation. And why don't you introduce yourself and take it away from there?
Thank you, Jeremy, and hi, everyone. I am Deepti, and I am in India. I am consulting mostly IT and software companies to introduce or to transform with the help of agility and Scrum, Kanban. And this journey of mine is a little more than 13 years. And in those 13 years, I think I had been into, my sleeves rolled up and into the dirt for like 6 years now. And this conversation about Agile contracts, this I have done in Scrum Day last time, and today we are here. All right. So when we talk about agility, we talk about Agile. We want equal ownership and participation from everyone. But when we talk about contracts, we do not talk about that. But that doesn't have to be explicit. That's inclusive. That's understood. But then what happens? There had been a very standard structured way of contracting, wherein we had few models, and when we'll progress, we'll see. And for the sake of time and for not oversimplifying, because I know I'm talking among experts and people mostly understand what I'm already going to tell them. So stop me if that's oversimplification of anything, or ask questions wherein it feels that I need to elaborate. So we all know about triple constraint. We all have been there. We talk about scope, we talk about cost, we talk about quality. I am not going to elaborate this, but we all understand. So there were two models when we talk about the iron triangle and the triple constraint. If we have everything fixed, then it is a fixed or a fixed scope or a fixed cost and fixed time model. And when we used to say that, we are discovering, we are ourselves not very sure, or this work is very well structured and defined, and it's mostly like just adding a few more features. So then we used to go about time and money, the contract type. There was one more, which is capped, wherein you combine both and you keep this thing, a cap of how much you would be paying while you are in the discovery phase. So these were our traditional approach. And when we were dealing with them, we also found out that when this whole Agile revolution happened, it became slightly difficult for everyone to understand how to bring in a contracting system which also supports our short iterations, because the contract that we are signing is for the entire amount of work. What to do about it? And so then that's when they said that, see, whatever you are calling as a fixed is not fixed, because we realized and we found out there had not been a fixed planning. There had been a discovery model. There had been a planning wherein we were discovering every sprint, and we had been changing our backlog every sprint. And so fixed is not fixed, and my fixed definitely as a customer is not your fixed as a service provider. And hence obvious is not so obvious for all of us. That's what I always call, that my obvious and your obvious will always differ. Every time there's a conflict, this is so obvious, you should have included this feature, we did not explicitly mention because we thought you understood. And hence, in order to save ourselves from all of this, what do? We have as elaborated requirements as possible, as long list as possible, and very clear laws for the change in the requirement. Okay, that was one step towards bringing in more clarity, wherein you are defining the boundaries in everyone's job. But what was the impact? I like this series from Dilbert, and the impact is your customer is not happy. As much as you are trying and giving your best to your customer is not happy. So then what happens? The customer loyalty goes away. We don't want our customer to just come one. We don't call success for a business when there are a lot of new customers coming up. The true success is when your customer is loyal to you and coming back again, when your customer is referring you to his friends, and hence that goes away. What else? Obviously your employee morale goes away, because what happens if there is good business, sales team is the one which gets maximum appreciation, and and if something goes wrong, it is the development team which is called upon and thrashed. And I've seen that, especially when you talk about these services industry. And so then what happens? This means your negative business growth. When you work very closely with these companies, and especially I'm an agile transformation agent. So when you work as a contractor, companies think that there are two major outcome of going through this agile transformation, or even bringing in agile. First, for them, agile is a scrum. So they say that please help my development team become more organized and structured, and help them follow these ceremonies and roles, and help them understand and follow them, so that their quality improves and their time to deliver reduces. So that is the mindset mostly which has been seen. Anyways, going back to contracts, see, you can't just go agile by changing your agile, changing your teams or changing your way of development. You have, and that's why we say that agile is all about the mindset, and agile is all about the enrollment at all the levels. So so when you talk about contracts, you have to have enrollment from all the levels. So before we move there, let us talk about the initial layer of agile, and let's talk about what people realized. People realized that you cannot live into iron triangle. You cannot apply a triple constraint and yet be flexible. So how to be flexible? So they said that, please, you have to loosen up one string. At one end, you have to free us up. And hence, at the heart of this triangle was quality. Considering, what quality we want to achieve, we decided we can actually, be playing at one of the angles, at the scope or the cost or the time. All right. Let's proceed. What happened next? Next, when Jeff Sutherland was listening to good music, and if you look at my previous slides, even I decided I'll show my taste. I too listen good music. So then when he was listening to Diaster's music, he came up with money for nothing and changes for free. And yes, that was a very good concept. So what does it mean, money for nothing and changes for free? Money for nothing and changes for free, some people also call it Scrum contracting, Scrum's way of contracting, Agile contracting. That means that, if you don't like my work, then at a certain fixed percentage for the payment, for the total work you think is delivered, which means 3 sprint, 5 sprint, or n number of sprints, and mostly this percentage comes out to be 20%, but depends on your agreement with customers. So whatever percentage you have decided, you can terminate the contract at any point in time with the payment, not 100%, but that percentage. So let's say we decided we want to terminate contract by the end of its 5th sprint. Fine, give us 20% payment, and then you can go. What does changes for free means? Okay, so how do we take changes in our traditional environment, traditional system? By change request, and each change request cost a dollar value, and it also depends at which time this change request is coming. And hence, Scrum gives you a very good way of dealing with that. How? Having sprints. Does your contract also offer you? Because there are chances that you may choose to have a standard regular contract But then your development approach that you are expecting, just like you expect your teams to go agile, your service provider to go agile, so you can expect that you do development in sprints, and wherein we will talk about change in the scope, but our contracts remain stringent. When our contracts remain stringent, then there is not complete true agility that we can achieve. All righty. So then what happened? Yeah, we talked about money for nothing and changes for free. So then came a very innovative approach, and I truly admire this approach. There can be various other approaches as well, but I mostly talk about it, which has been proposed by Gabriel and Sabrina, I think. Let me just see. Okay. Aha, here it is. Yes, I was right. It was Suzanne and Gabriel. They proposed SOTU, which is your target outcome based contracting model, wherein they also call it minimum viable contract and outcome based contract, or statement of target outcome. So what exactly happens in the SOTU? Alrighty, so now we are here on the SOTU based, which is a flexi contract model. Okay, in this model, we are not talking about a list of features, but instead we are more focused on what is the business objective we are trying to meet. So my business objective is creating a website for an unconference that I'm doing. Now, that becomes the business outcome for a SOW based contract as well. So what's difference? Difference is probably, not probably, for sure. This difference is basically the list of features that I might ask my service provider to create. So I might say I need an about page, and then I need a page for creating proposals. And then when we are creating proposals, within proposals, we would want option to add proposal, option to vote for the proposal, option for ranking proposals, option for reviewing the details on the proposals, modify them. So what I can go about it, I can go about list of features and sub features and baby features that I want within. Instead, what can be done? Instead, we can actually talk about the target outcome. What do I want to achieve? And here you see, enrollment between the two parties is very important. That means more than you as a service provider, your customer has to participate. That means not in elaborating features or not in giving a long list of features, which is as much inclusive as possible. No, it means that your customer has to help you understand his vision, his dream, what is he trying to achieve. And then he has to allow you to go creative. I'll be very honest. So when we were preparing for this unconference, Agility Today, which happened in India, Delhi in Feb, 25th Feb, I did not go about how exactly should we look and feel. I'll be very honest, my version and my service provider's version, we were both in sync, and we were like, we want to do something which is very revolutionary for the IT industry, kind of unconference which Delhi has never seen. And what can we do? Let's not do the conference, let's do the unconference. That was the very first thought, and wherein we said we'll have as much as participation as possible. Okay, so then our website should also reflect the same feeling. So she said, okay, let me show you couple of formats. And I was so much in love with this, what she showed to me. Had I been writing lists, and I'll be very honest, I was a first time conference runner, organizer, and so for me, all her valuable input were very important. I actually couldn't have done so well, and her visualization was far more better than me. So I just used to tell her, these are the things that, and we used to run our sprints. That was our contract. I completely trusted her for the per sprint payment she asked for, and that's how we used to work. She also gave me flexibility. Not everyone does that. In case the work is completed earlier, I was allowed to add backlog items even to the sprint. So yeah, I mean, again, that's an agreement between your service provider and your customer, and doesn't happen in the standard industry. It was more out of, loyalty to me and the affection to me, and to the vision that I was sharing, because she was also equally excited and participating. And all right, so if we go back, so what did I want to achieve, and what did I explain to her? I said, something that tells people that there is going to be a very different event, and they should totally come. And what will the experience? Okay, fine. So then we said, this is a feeler factor, which gives them feel that, okay, how enthusiastically, you will be enjoying 2 days. And then we defined here in this section, what is this unconference about? Why are we doing it? What have we done? And then we also mentioned, if you want to read more, which has been changed because it has happened in the past. Otherwise, we had more options. So here we are, when all the more options that we were talking. So what is this? How it has happened? All these details, they were mentioned here. We wanted everyone to unlearn, unwind, and unleash their true potential with this unconference, and we achieved that. And so then there were multiple options that we gave to people to express themselves, to submit proposals, to vote for the proposals. If they cannot submit proposal which they want, or they don't see the proposal they want to see, then what can they do? Okay, then they can share your voice here, this button. So we gave them multiple options. You can join our team, you can propose a session, you can propose a topic. And some of these options are there in all the conferences here, but there were many which were there for the first time. For example, share your voice. What do you feel? So there was a survey collected here, and there is another channel by SurveyMonkey. So with 2 channels, we created a lot of feedback from people, how they feel about the state of agility in this state, as in Delhi state, and what do they want, and how we can help. And that really gave us a very good background to prepare a program with them. We crowdsources the program. That means the program was in front of them. If they don't see those sessions, they had a place to share that we want session on, let's say, Agile contracts, and then they could vote to these sessions. So I wrote my targeted outcome that the agenda should be crowdsourced. How can I do that? She said, okay, fine, we'll introduce polling. We will enroll them via an OTP. That means they don't necessarily need to create their accounts. Later, we also discovered we could have enrolled them via any social media channel. Anyways, you always discover more as you move ahead. Then audience polls. So with voting option that we wanted to give. Then feedback. So there was this another channel via which we could collect feedback even before running the unconference, so that we can include as much as possible. And then everyone asked for certificate and gratitude. So for this, we went to another service provider, a very good service provider. This one is, where is it? Never mind, I'll just type it. So for each session, then again, this is also a mobile app. So we didn't have to do much. For each session, there was an online feedback option. And then once the unconference is over, they all can generate with the registered login ID, the certificates. So we just had to make our outcome that we are wanting to achieve. And if it is very clear, then there are various ways. You do not have to interfere, and you do not have to feed your service provider with exact steps that you want. And that's what Agile is. We are discovering as much as possible. So I think on the conversation front, that's all I have to have. Now I want us to interact and, talk. Again, I'm taking the SOTU document, which is openly available, and I am just showing you how we can define our SOTU. And yeah, so this is where we start. We have our SOTU reference number, our contact information for the customer and the service provider, and then we proceed. We start defining our target outcome. So for me, let's say my target outcome is these 5 items. introduction to our mission. We want world to know what we are doing, and then crowdsourcing the agenda. And then again, as part of crowdsourcing, we want polling as an option wherein people can poll and decide this is the talk or the workshop they want to attend and not. And then obviously a very clear feedback mechanism so that we can, even before starting unconference, incorporate as much as we can. And then after unconference, and then obviously certificates for the participation and gratitude. So corresponding to each SOTO, then if we want to detail out for each target outcome, then if we want to do the detailing, we can do the detailing. In the industry, there is this trend wherein people want to do measurement in the Agile format. How do they go about it? They go about it via using story points. Somehow I'm not very much convinced with that. It doesn't feel very convenient and comfortable to me. That's my personal choice. I can be wrong also. Why? Because see, if you are my team, then you understand my velocity, my capacity, right? And so then the estimation in terms of that's it, right? In the story points, it's right. Otherwise, it's actually not making much sense. We had been into this trap with one of our. So when I was at my client, this was a service company, and my client got a very difficult and a very educated client, more educated than themselves. So this one was very much stuck on SOTO, the targeted outcome. So now this client, he would sit with the team for the planning because the product owner was coming from the client side, which was a fair equation. But my team was not so used to. The services companies lie when they say, oh yeah, we have been doing delivery in the Agile model and we are pretty Agile. No, they're not. They're definitely not. So good for them. And I was very happy. I'm sorry, I would not be naming the client, but definitely I was happy because what were they doing? They were just training their sales team. You talk to their sales team, they're so good. They will talk far more better than all Agilists and developers. They knew way much more than the developers. And I was surprised. I was like, oh my God. So when the sales team sell, the customer is really impressed, and customer feels that, wow, we are going to a great company, and the costs are really, competitive. As much as, if I have to talk about India, yeah, the development work happens really cheap. And so, yeah, this is what happened. But when it came to pay, our client's customer comes back and says, I'm not happy with the delivery. And I think they're taking way too less amount of work. The velocity is very less. And so I'm like, hello, how can you even talk about velocity? This team is working for the first time in a Scrum fashion. And so client is not aware. So I think going by story points is not a very good approach if you are not yourself a mature team. Instead, you simply stick to your velocity. You have velocity for your understanding and measurement on how much work you can take. But then you just commit without looking at points, without looking at hours, based on your understanding how much you can deliver as a team. So yeah, that's about it. Now I think I'll give it a rest and I will let everyone else speak.
So I've promoted everyone to be panelists, so you can manage mute, unmute, and video by yourselves and don't have to depend on me. So yeah, thank you, Deepti. Why don't we open things up for questions?
So I have a quick question, Deepti. My name is Anjana. You mentioned that I agree with your idea about velocity, but then the team needs to have some kind of tracking or some kind of measure on how much they can deliver. They can't just guess at it or unless they have the experience. And I guess the experience, when I say experience, I mean at least 3 to 4 years of experience working in an agile environment to understand exactly what they can guess at delivering. But if we take the measurement point out of it, how can a brand new team, say somebody who's been doing agile for maybe 3 months, 6 months, how can they guess at what they will be delivering? Or okay, estimate is a better word.
So there are two parts actually in this question. First of all, as a service provider, you are lying to your clients saying that my team is experienced and my team is an agile team. But in reality, your team is a novice. It's a new team and it doesn't understand its own capacity. When we talk about agile team, we talk about mature teams who understand their own velocity. So in service industry, and Anjana, you are from India, you will understand. By the way, which part in India? Where are you?
I'm actually in Atlanta, US.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So first thing that, when we are talking about using velocity and story points, then we need to understand what is our velocity and story points. So you cannot go ahead with velocity and story points if you don't understand that. That means you are not mature enough. There can be members who understand agile concepts and agile estimation really well, but still velocity is a team thing, agile is a team thing. So even if with one or two strong players, you are not a good team till the time you're not a strong team. So that's part one. Now part two, when you say about how to estimate, so if it is an absolutely new team, it is a disaster if you are committing a certain amount of delivery from the starting. Instead, what you would do a discovery initially, maybe 3 sprints to 6 sprints. You will convince or enroll customer with you to be in the discovery phase, wherein you are discovering what customer wants and wherein team is also developing a understanding. In Agile, we always talk about enrolling customer and telling customer, where we are honestly. But I understand business is business. It means money and you do not go honest. And that's where the whole problem comes up. So instead, you rather have a mature team which can talk about their own velocity and are confident about sizing. Otherwise, you don't do that. Then you take your time. You take your at least 3 sprints per team to understand their own velocity. And the next 3 sprints to obviously, get settled with the storming, norming, and developing their own working agreements.
Deepti, I think that's a really critical point, and I'm glad that was one of the first things that came up. Last night as we were talking, it's really more appropriate to do a time and materials contract.
Right.
If you have a newer team and you have that partnership with the client or vice versa with your vendor to bring up the team to be mature. This agile contract mechanism and the SOTU mechanism is not appropriate for those new teams. It's only to be there once you've built up some level of maturity.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Great question, Anjana. Keep them coming. You guys feel free to unmute and keep asking.
All right, Deepti, here we go. Vikramjeet from India, right? Hi, how are you?
Hi, Vikram. I'm good.
All right. So my quick question to you here is, like, if you've just started a new project, you are already enrolled, or it's a new team, right? How you start actually making a bonding more stronger with your team. So any suggestions or any ways how we can improve the more bonding with a new team?
Okay. So in order to, although which is not about contract, but I love this question. I call myself a coffee time Scrum Master. So it is very important to take your team out so that they understand and know you and start trusting you. Do not give them a lot of suggestions, nothing. Ask them. And as a Scrum Master, you also need to be a little, what should I say? Don't be too shy. Don't be too conscious. You really have to be a fun person. And you have to understand their challenges and problem. I maintain a personal journal wherein I write about each person, I write about situations, and I maintain that date-wise. So then, when I have reached to a distance, I can actually look back where we started and where we have come to. A very good approach is to have a session wherein we all are setting our working agreements, where we discover the difference of opinion. And so that is the point where we convince our team about why not to have a session wherein we develop same language, same understanding of jargons, and decide what part of Agile we want to do and we don't want to do. So let's see if we want to do Scrum. Let's see how much of Scrum do we want to do. And when we are not doing something, what is the impact? Why it is needed to be done? So when team understands that, and when team collectively develops the working agreements, which takes almost 1 to 2 sprints time, sometimes 3 in case of distributed teams, and when you have a leadership, that means, you're the team manager sitting somewhere else, and then, different members, a group of teams collectively working on a code base, and so check in, check out, deployment. So, there are n number of restrictions, database access. And so in that scenario, coming up with a working agreement sometimes takes around 3 sprints, because we are talking a new team, a new Scrum Master, new environment. So the first approach is obviously coffee talks. Then definitely defining working agreements. While defining working agreements, bring everyone to a realization that, we need a ice-breaking session wherein we also understand what processes we want to follow, which framework we want to stick to, and maybe give them a Scrum understanding overview workshop kind of thing. And then very important part is expectation setting, vision discovery. In this workshop, what do? We also talk about our organizational roles, because it's very easy to say that, when you're following, there will be a Scrum Master and a product owner. But in real scenario, you have a manager and a manager's manager, and then a junior manager, and then a favorite of manager. So a lot of things are there. So then what do? You talk about, okay, fine, let's define what should we expect for a particular role in the team. Okay, what do we expect from manager? And it takes a lot of courage for a Scrum Master, because you are playing with organizational elements. So yeah, I mean, you have to be careful, and you have to definitely have this discovery exercise wherein you set an expectation for everyone, for the team where they are right now. Okay, so right now we are at a skill set level this, right now we are at an understanding level this, and everyone writes on post-it. I use idea boards. I'm sure everyone knows, so I'm not going to show it. So I use idea boards so that everyone can write on these stickies fearlessly. One discovery that we did with a team as a consultant who was already working in a Scrum model was that they would not write on sticky notes. And so then what happened? A lot of team members would not participate in suggesting anything, because they're like, okay, fine, yeah, they're all talking, yeah, nobody would listen to me, or yeah, my suggestion would come from some team member, so I'm not interested, I'm not participating. When we all started writing on stickies, first of all, everyone was forced to write. I mean, they were moved out of their comfort zone, and then they started participating. And next thing was, obviously, there were input which nobody actually knew were actually, areas of concern. So yeah.
Thanks a lot. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Won't we open things up? Anjana, go ahead and ask your question after I say this. But I'd really be curious to see what others have done in the area of flexible contracts and agile contracting. Yeah. Has anyone else used the SOTU model or something else? What are some ideas that we can contribute to the general body of knowledge that this group constitutes?
So 2 things. First, talking about working agreements, that needs to be a working document. So even though you set up working agreements once, this is my idea, my opinion, it makes sense to go ahead and revisit it at certain periods so that we can keep modifying it, keep it current. Because as there is team changes, or as there is growth in the personalities of the teams, that document definitely needs to change.
Absolutely.
Yep. Second thing, talking about contracts. One of my experiences that I'd like to share is going into an organization and facing budget issues because the contract was not made in the right way.
Right.
So I made a suggestion that we could pull out just a certain portion of the organization, just one division, and make that as a SOTU contract or a flexible terms contract wherein we keep the teams intact. We know how much we're paying for the teams, and we go ahead and budget for each team for a year at a time and see how it goes.
Wow.
So that was taken very, very favorably. And I think they moved that from that same contract model. They moved it from 1 division to 3 divisions, after which I left the company. But that was definitely a success towards convincing management to actually adopt the whole, the right mindset that needs to go with the Agile. So.
Wow, yeah, that's a really nice suggestion. And actually, budgeting is a crucial thing, and it's a very senior level thing. So not everyone actually gets to participate in that. And as much as we talk about enterprise agile transformation and org level transformation, agile originates from startups and small teams. So scaling is definitely a difficult task, and definitely budget for large organization, enterprises and MNCs is a big deal. But this one which you suggested is definitely a good idea and a very simplistic.
I found that on the budgeting side and on the contract side, there's often there's less resistance than we might assume. So maybe it is there, but let's not assume it's there, because a lot of finance departments and contracting departments also have change management mechanisms. And if you can learn to speak their language and talk about building change management into the contract, then they start becoming comfortable with the terms that we're using, and they start understanding what we're talking about.
Right. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
Okay, I'll just, stop it.
This has been great. Let's keep going. We've got a few more minutes. Other thoughts, ideas, and suggestions or questions?
Hi, this is Shah from Bangalore. I have a question on contracts, the clause money for nothing. So how do you decide how much the customer will pay, how much percentage when they want to use this clause to end it?
Okay, so money for nothing and changes for free. When you talk about that, you decide in the very beginning at which point in time in the sprint our customer would want to terminate the contract. So you decide a certain percentage that, if there is a premature termination of contract, customer still has to pay that percentage. It can be 20%, it can be 40%. So let's say we worked for 4 sprints and we had conflict and we were not happy. In the 5th sprint, we decided we are wanting to kill the contract. So for the 5th sprint, you have to pay us 20%. And for each sprint, there was a demo. And in the demo, we decided whether we were satisfied or not. Now there are 2 approaches, not only for SOTO, in general for the flexible contracts or per sprint based delivery. The first approach is if you have accepted that you would be paying at the end of the sprint, or you will terminate it. If the termination is the only clause, then you have to, as a customer, have to pay for that sprint. Otherwise, if you are measuring on the basis of acceptance from the product owner, which is what I was facing with my client, I was so happy. This client was really bad because they had so many malpractices. They were simply fooling their customers. And so my client's customer was really smart. He came up with this SOTO and he said that, no, I am not happy with the delivery. So I am not accepting the work that you have delivered. So then what happened? This backlog was transferred to the next sprint. And so if you talk about whatever has been delivered, percentage of velocity, percentage of story points delivered, on the basis of that, I'm going to pay. So let's say for this sprint, I committed 20 story point and my product owner, which is from the customer side, has accepted only 8 story points or 10 story points. So you get 50% or 40% payment, right? And then when you terminate it, in the fifth sprint, we have termination. So we have decided when you decide to prematurely kill it, terminate it, then you will pay us 20%. You can decide it 40%, 30%, whatever. So this is how, you deal with it.
Have you run into situations with carryover? So you have a feature that you got halfway done, and maybe in the next sprint you completed that and extra. Did the client pay extra for that extra delivery?
Yeah.
Or what?
Yes, we ran into that. Sorry for cutting you in between. Yes, exactly. This is what happened. So in the third sprint, we had spillover from the first and we had spillover from the second, and we worked day and night because, the organization was not very supportive. So we worked and we delivered, and our customer was still not happy. But by the third sprint, there was some harmony, some understanding, and we could deliver like with a quality of 80%. Not very happy, but still pay.
Now, did they ever pay extra because you exceeded expectations?
No, so this was no extra. So for the first sprint, we did not get paid for 100%, right? We were paid only for 20%, and they didn't pay because we decided that we will discuss at the third sprint. And so the service provider confused it to be, okay, by third sprint, we will get complete payment. That's what we thought. And that's why this whole marketing team and the delivery team, and there was this huge fight and everything. Client was more like, I'm not happy, and you are an agile company, you are doing agile product development, and you don't understand what is SOTO, and how are you going to actually decide? We will not pay you. So then we said that please give us one more attempt, and we'll try and deliver all what has been committed till third sprint. We did that. So yes, you can call it extra payment, but if you will see, we got paid only 20% for first sprint, 20% for the second sprint. So by the time we reached to third or fourth sprint, we were paid the residual of our previous sprints. So it was not extra. It was that we were already in debt.
So it sounds like it's really critical that you only make that sprint commitment where the dependencies in the client side have been resolved. Have you run into that where those dependencies drove discipline in the Scrum team in not committing to things that were blocked by the internal client?
Yeah. So team was of the attitude and mindset that, it's okay. First initial month, there is mostly discussion and understanding, but the client was a truly agile, if not person with the mindset, at least aware. And then when there is a distance, there is always a distrust. So then this client started fearing they're trying to make fool out of me. They think I don't understand, So the trust factor was going, and both the parties were struggling. And the team who was definitely not agile, was of the mindset that, initial few sprints, there are problems. We are understanding. That's why, till that third sprint where the discussion happened, they were like, they didn't provide the information. How could we complete the work and whatever. Or they asked some change in between. He's a customer. And so we did change in between. And they didn't have the clear working agreement. So then, so it becomes really important to have that expectation setting, that working agreement. The client was looking into logs. So this product owner guy was a technical guy, and he was looking into the logs, error logs, and he was saying, why is this error? This should not be there, and all of that. Because the trust was gone by the time you were in second or third sprint, he was checking logs and he's coming back with a lot of issues, quality issues on the development. I needed a modular delivery and you didn't give me modular delivery. things like that. You hard coded it. Yeah. So yes, you can't, wrong practices take you wrong places, and it never helps. Yeah. When you're claiming you are agile, please understand the practices and do the right thing.
Or I'd say the worst case, have you tried to do an agile fixed price contract? And what challenges have you run into there? And do you think that this would fix those challenges?
So I guess what I mentioned before was a fixed price contract that I was able to convince the people to budget for the teams. The only thing is that in that scenario, having the we have to give the clients the flexibility to back out anytime they want. And that, I believe, may or may not work out in certain scenarios.
I think not in certain scenarios. Actually, organizations are fearful about it because it becomes a lot of work for them. So as much, I agree, that's a very valid point. And in fact, in the morning session, as in the previous session, when we were talking about agile contracts, this is what we discussed about. And the discussion was, management is not ready for such small contracts. They do not want to get into hassle of again and again negotiating, as in, renewing the contract. And then there is a fear. If you haven't signed a contract for a good long time with the customer, you are always on your toes, right? And so that's when we were talking about, we also have to have a cross-functional team in terms of your customer executive or your customer relationship manager, right? So for every project, as they call it in the service industry, the development project or where you're making apps or you're making, e-commerce portals or things like that, you have contracts which are there for entire lifetime, or at least, to the time span for which customer is comfortable. But when you talk about SOTU, you're talking about reviewing it every sprint. And so the management wasn't ready because they were like, oh, no, we want to trap them for once and for all. Not exactly to trap, but then we really want this contract to be signed for a good long amount of time. And within that, we'll settle our dispute. We do not want to have it reviewed every 3 sprints, which is one and a half months to 2 months or 3 months time. So in that case, what we can also do, that we still have a contract for, let's say, a year, wherein we review our things sprintly and wherein we all evolve together. We are in discovery together. So, but yes, this is a huge mindset shift for organizations.
Deepti, I think that's a great point. And so just reiterating what you said, longer term contracts, establishing relationships of trust between firms, and eliminating or ensuring transparency across organizational boundaries, so that if the client and the vendor are working together, they can do continuous improvement together, rather than putting this boundary between them where the vendor hides issues from the client and the client hides issues from the vendor, and then it blows up later. I think that's really important, in terms of those are basic principles of lean contracts going all the way back to Toyota, a small list of vendors, long-term relationships, and complete transparency across those boundaries.
Doing the right job.
Not only that, if you want to build up a reputation for yourself, there is no way you can not be transparent. And in fact, I believe a lot of people appreciate the transparency. Even if you've made a mistake, it's easier to bring it up when the mistake is small and you're ready to fix it for free. Rather than bringing it up later saying, hey, this was not part of it, or I don't remember this. Just being transparent and building up that reputation for yourself works in any industry, I believe.
Right, absolutely. because it's a good context. We can name a company. So we always used to, especially here in Delhi, talk about ThoughtWorks. And ThoughtWorks would actually, so we will go to their weekly meetups and we all will brainstorm and talk. And they used to come up with those examples which they have run in their organization, wherein they have actually enrolled customer. So it's sales job or the marketing's job doesn't get over as soon as you have brought customer into the environment of the company. No, you have to be there for the continuous contract, evaluation and establishment. And that is your job as a customer relationship manager. You are not there just as a face of company and fooling a client. And so when, we used to discuss in ThoughtWorks and we talk about it, so they were like, yeah, we keep our customer very much aware of what's going on, and we communicate and connect as much as possible, and we educate and enroll them into the whole philosophy. That in the morning session, we also talked about, Jeremy, that what do we do when there is a bidding system and all the companies are bidding. So then we were talking, we go with both the models, that yes, we are, for the sake of bidding and how everyone is doing, this is the approach, but we are also proposing this, which is a SOTU model or a flexi model. So, yeah.
So really, I think tying a bow around that, it's you bid out to multiple vendors, you do pilot projects potentially with each of them. You narrow it down to one vendor where you want to mature and grow the team into a longer term relationship. And then at a certain point of maturity, then you can switch into the sprint by sprint SOTA model that allows you to monitor and manage deliverables and payments, based on real delivery outcomes. Is that, is that a fair summary?
That's a fair summary. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. It's ultimately, Deepti, how does this benefit the client, and how does this benefit the vendor?
For vendor, definitely in the beginning, it looks like a lot of hard work. But if they create one such ecosystem wherein they align their customer engineers in such way that they understand it and they are able to make customers understand, then it is beneficial for the company's branding and brand building and getting referrals. Similarly, for clients, it is obviously very important to be aware. And what do clients feel that, okay, you are a good service provider, you will tell me everything, I am trusting you. So for even clients, it is very important. In the morning, I gave an example. We had a client. He would repeatedly come to us. We have been taking care of his account for 10 years. I mean, this client of mine was taking care of that client's account for 10 years. Now, what happened? But every time, because they were there with us for such a long time, we would want them to say something good about the delivery that we have done. But they were like, yeah, your work is okay. Why okay? You're coming to us every time. So when we insisted on them having in our reviews every sprint, they said, that's too much of time that you're asking from me. I'm giving you money. Give us a good work. We said, okay, fine. Please give us one frequency when you can come. He's like, okay, fine. Every month I can come. So when he started coming to us every month, he could come and change the backlog for the sprint, which is going to happen next. And that really helped them. By the time we were done with this work, this time, this expressionless client was happy and he smiled and he said, this is the better delivery. And so then we told him that it is a better delivery thanks to you, because you were interacting and helping us deliver better. So it is definitely very good for client. But yeah, they have to take time out.
Well, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. It's the end of the hour. Deepti, thank you so much for doing the presentation today and the first session as well. And thank you for everyone for your comments and questions. And we'll share the recording and post it out on social media. And feel free to continue the conversation online in the Business Agility Institute LinkedIn community, on Slack, and on the post as they get posted out.
Thank you, Jeremy. It was a complete pleasure, and thanks, Jeff, Irshad, Vikram. Thanks for staying. Thanks for the questions, and thanks to all of them who were there and have left just now. But thanks a lot.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Deepti.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.